speed is the most important factor in causing crashes and causing severe outcomes. So if I could change one thing, and Emily, this is not just one place in Europe, all over Europe, Canada, America, we see 30 kilometer per hour zones. We want more of them in Australia. I feel so backward when I travel in Europe and see. And finally, it's about including safety, not as an add-on to the road transport cycle that we discussed, from strategizing, investment, programming, delivery, and maintenance and evaluation. So safety should become not the 11th hour afterthought.
Okay, well, Hafez, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast to chat with me today.
Thank you very much, Emily, for having me. It's great to be here.
Are you able to do a little bit of an introduction about yourself? So who you are, your role or the organization you work with, and then also something that you're passionate about.
Oh, for sure. So my name is Hafez Alavi. So I'm the principal of HA Consulting. So I've been in the field of road and transport safety and active travel for around 23 years, working in the public sector, both state and local governments, academia, and the private industry. So what I'm really passionate for is road safety and promoting active travel, and that links back to when I was a kid. As a kid, I had two crashes. Once with a motorcycle when I was 5 or 6, and once when I was 11, I was hit by a car. Both occasions I survived miraculously, but the horror and the parallel universe would have been like killed or seriously maimed for life. So that's why I'm really into road safety. It's my life passion.
Who let you drive a motorbike at 5?
It's fascinating. I don't remember the pain because I was too young, but I remember the horror in everybody involved, my parents, my relatives, chaos.
So Australia's road safety performance has kind of come up. It's come up a lot, actually, not just in Australia, but like worldwide. Everyone's talking about their road safety performance. And the trend, unfortunately, in most of these places is that it has been worsening.
Mm.
What does the data tell us about maybe the scale and the nature of this issue?
Yeah, for sure. So I would like to discuss it from both data and human side. So from the data perspective, we're seeing a surge in fatalities and serious injuries across Australasia, in Australia and worldwide, as you said. So we have seen potentially the highest FSIs, fatal and serious injuries, over the last 10 years, and the trend is upwards, which is quite worrying. Currently in Australia, we have around 1,300 people killed, 4 or 5 times seriously injured. By serious injury, we mean paraplegia, quadriplegia, acute brain injury, injuries that will stay with a person for the rest of their lives and significantly limit their quality of life. Now, stats are just figures and numbers. We have learned to tell a better story. We need to sort of really humanize it. So I tell you a story about a 32-year-old father of two kids, a married person, really having a great life, running a business, productive, contributing to the society, both financially and, socially, and having really benign hobbies of, boating and going to gym. On the event, on the eve of this day that I'm describing for the crash, he was out with a family dog, walking the dog at an intersection, local street. It was posted 40K. He was hit at 50 by a car. At the crash scene, he had 50% chance of dying, 50%. Survived, went to hospital, 42 days in hospital, and, rehab and all that. Almost $1 million by then cost to the society. But then when we went back to him after 6 months to check how he's going, he was in pain. Family life was in chaos. Business was a bit at risk. Social life was in danger, kids not happy. In 12 months, divorced, lost the business, suicidal, started gambling. So this is the part of trauma that we need to talk more about, and of which we get not just 1,300 people, we get thousands and thousands of Australians. And unfortunately, the issue not targets, it's more relevant for young kids or elderly people, people in lower social status, First Nation people and regional people. It's stats, which is bad, but also the impact, which is even worse and widespread.
I think it's good to bring that perspective up in particular with I think we focus a lot on deaths, which are obviously quite horrific, but it's less attention is then focused on the serious injuries part of the FSI and what that can mean, not just in, that person's quality of life, but how that might have those broader social effects that you've just mentioned. So I think it's good to shift the focus from the fatal part to the serious injury part for some part of this, just to kind of like make it more balanced maybe in the conversation.
Yeah, also, the ripple effect can be even larger for serious injuries compared to deaths. So deaths are tragic, but that sometimes serious injuries impact more people for a longer period, and we need to be cognizant of that as well. Yes.
So in terms of deaths and serious injuries, how does Australia compare to other OECD countries?
This is one of the areas that really pains us. Actually, we are really proud of our colleagues in other OECD countries for the amazing job they do for their communities, and we call for our nation to be different. So let me give you the comparison, and we can discuss why this is happening. If we compare ourselves with comparable nations in terms of their sort of development level, Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, the UK, France, Germany, our performance in road safety is twice worse. So every Australian is twice more likely to be killed or seriously injured compared to a Dutch guy or a German woman. So that's that. Now, if we dissect that stats for more vulnerable road users, if you think about pedestrians and cyclists, the stats and the comparison is even worse. A pedestrian in Australia is 4 times more likely to be killed or seriously injured compared to a Norwegian pedestrian. And the matter is even worse if you look at First Nation people in Australia compared to other Australians, and them compared to other pedestrians around the world. So the comparison is not really, promising. Now, we can learn because there are things that they are doing systemically that is different. So one of the myths that we're dealing with, that Australia is not Norway, Australia is not Netherlands, Australia is not the UK, and we agree with that. Of course, we're not them, but none of these countries are the other country. So the UK and the Netherlands, totally different, but they have similar sort of performance. Or Japan has similar performance. So it's beyond nations and beyond their geographic or other characteristics. It's because the systemic interventions they're doing that I would really like to talk to you about today. What are the systemic interventions?
Well, I'm glad that's the case, because the next question is from your expertise, do you think we have a clear understanding of the interventions that are needed to truly reach these Vision Zero goals of no deaths and no serious injuries?
Let me bring a parallel. There are some social and societal issues. Our approach to them is we want none of them. We know it's difficult to stop them. We know that we need to do way more to stop them. But the vision is very clear. We want 0 of those. In late 1990s, we thought about civil rights. Our people have right to have access to a safe transport because transport is nothing extraordinary. So we thought that we should have the same approach. 0 person should be killed or maimed for life because of using the system to go from A to B. That is the Vision Zero principle that we adopted in Australia in 2004 and thereabouts in different states. And that's about agreeing that morally we need to do everything possible to stop them. This is based on 4 principles and these are the safe system principles, the so-called safe system principles, which say that first, no one should be killed or seriously injured on the road. Human beings make mistakes. Humans are human, but road authorities need to take ultimate responsibility and accountability for these and do whatever they can to stop those happening and help people to stop them. Also, we need to look at the problem systemically. We need to stop blaming Joe or Jane, and we need to look at what part of the system is failing. So we look at road speed, vehicle, post-crash care, road safety management function, and identify all the things that you and I, as transport professionals, elected officials, DEPSECs, governments, local governments, industry, advocacy, and all of them can do to help the public be safer. Now, the results of all of this and several hundreds pieces of research and work and project tells us that we can develop a state of the transport system, which is called the safe system end state. A safe system end state that we have defined in Australasia is a state of transport system that the risk of getting killed or seriously injured is near zero. And this is done based on a certain setting of the road, certain speed limits set for the road and enforced and managed, and certain vehicle safety features like a lane keep assist or autonomous emergency braking system or intelligent speed assist or other features of the vehicle. So the news is, and this news can be shocking to you, hopefully shocking to you, in 2025, we know how to stop 85 to 90% of fatal and serious injuries in Australia if we did what we know. So this is actually disheartening for the community, for us, the road safety practitioners, that we are way behind our targets of 50% reduction of FSIs by 2030.
Are there any kind of common misconceptions or common barriers that you encounter when advocating for safe systems principles? I feel like you've kind of alluded that there are these barriers and misconceptions, that maybe if you wanted to unpack them a little bit more.
Oh, for sure. When we talk to our friends, colleagues, practitioners in Europe, one of the things that we see that is a bit different is about how safety is embedded in the management of road transport. So if you look at, for example, the Netherlands, safety is not an add-on. As, say, cycling, it's not an add-on, it's how they do things. So when we look at the life cycle of a road transport system, from having the strategies, having funds, business case development, and then doing programming, policy development, to developing projects, delivering the projects, maintaining them, surveillance and evaluation. Safety is a non-negotiable, so it's priority. Now, in Australasia, we have a number of blockers against that. First, culture. We need to tell our people, our public, more and more that this is their right and what they're missing. So you and I cannot accept if our, say, living standards is twice worse than what they receive in Sweden or Norway. But obviously, we have accepted that our risk is like twice as more, and we do nothing about that. So public education. That influences elected officials or political spheres' commitment. There is this is also a bit an area that we need to work on. I don't want to use the word disheartening, but our politicians, elected officials, can be more accountable. For example, this year we're sitting at this significant increase in trauma and pain and suffering for the Australian community. I haven't seen a politician coming out and yelling for change. So public education, culture, political accountability. in my opinion, are the biggest blockers. Technical aspects, Emily, we know. We know how to stop trauma technically. It's not technical, not anymore. It's more about road safety management, communication, culture building, and political leadership.
So you've kind of mentioned three areas. So you've said the cultural, the public, and the political resistance
Mhm,
to these initiatives.
mhm.
How might we be able to address some of these resistances? For example, like people resisting lower speed limits in urban areas. How could we maybe kind of get people to come on board or enact like a bit of a behavior or even a mental shift?
Totally. So, let's talk about change, and I would like to sort of dissect this question to behavior change. Changing Joe and Jim on the road, but also political shift. The ways that we can change the political view and perspective is by creating stakes or gains, if you will. One of the areas we have identified that we can encourage the political leaders to take the road safety cause is by showing the productivity loss or the economic loss because of road trauma. That is something that we have identified in several conversations. We recently completed several investigations into what changes the political sort of sensitivity, and that productivity and economic gain is very important. Also, it's about understanding the shifting nature of both society, like emerging issues, emerging technologies, emerging societal problems or phenomena, which impacts the political sphere. And one of the things that we can encourage is um, how to create a bipartisan approach to road safety based on that economic gain that we can. Right. So also, it's about understanding how the local government and the political leadership in local government can be influenced by that, which links to your initial question about how we can change behavior in local communities. So, with that one, first thing that I want to mention, and we're learning, and we should be doing more, is advocacy. Uh, in the New York City, for example, even like decades before, started an advocacy group called, I think, Mothers Killed by Drunk, no, Mothers of Children Killed by Drunk Drivers. And that's an example of showing that how a suffering part of the community who has suffered trauma, they can get together and create massive change. Now that you go to New York City and you see lots of speed changes. So advocacy is very important, which comes on the back of education and providing information and data. So we educate the public, we provide them with information, we support advocacy, and they hopefully lead change. The other thing that we have noticed is by creating case studies, by showing people, by trialing solutions and show people that no chaos will happen or no tragedy will happen. People say if you drop the speed to look on in local street to 30K, there will be massive impact on travel time. We have shown in Victoria, in the city of Yarra, that the impacts won't be as much, but the gains will be significant, and show those facts and figures to the community. But facts and figures convince only a minority of the community. It's all about emotions, and emotions are swayed by, unfortunately, tragedy, and by getting to tragedy as a platform, taking it as a platform, advocate for change, and that's why we need more advocacy in Australasia.
There's like a nice theme in a lot of your answers to these questions that it starts in transport and then is kind of taken broader into contextualized. So I often, yeah, road safety is often viewed as just a transport issue or relegated to one sector. But we know that obviously improving transport and road safety has broader benefits. So, what might be some of the key co benefits of safer roads for individuals, communities, but even like the broader kind of economy? You've mentioned everything from like the emotional and sociocultural factors, but also like the monetary value of a fatal or serious injury.
100%. And this relates to the behavior change topic that we just discussed. I give you this stat sort of blew my mind. There's a research that shows that if you increase the walkability of a neighborhood, the price of properties increase. We knew that walkability and cyclability and active travel has an impact on, the sort of the businesses and how they thrive, but it also impacts property. So these facts, we need to collect them and tell the community. So what are we call them the core benefits of road safety. I want to mention this, that we learning more and more that road safety by itself is not on many people's radars, and it shouldn't be. Road safety should be on no one's radar, hopefully, eventually. So people think about, prosperity, like mobility, going around, having fun. So we've learned that instead of talking about road safety all the time and banging on that, what if we say, if you have safer environments, more people can sort of, access businesses, more children can walk to school. So active travel is one of the benefits, one of the co-benefits. Also, it's about safety sometimes come at the cost of, reducing the dominance of cars. And we know the impact of like weakening the dominance of cars on decarbonization, noise management, pollution management, and so on and so forth. Also, all of these, as you know, has an impact on social cohesion. So we will have more cohesive neighborhoods. It will help us to have hopefully more artful, neighborhood, more people coming out. I want to also mention that safety allows the more vulnerable cohorts of the society, like the children, the elderly, people with different levels of ability to come out and use the environment. So we are learning to think about those aspects when we talk about safety. So safety is a goal by itself, but it's not a goal by itself. It's an enabler of so many social benefits.
So road safety can be kind of a heavy topic. So I always like to end on a little bit more of a positive, forward-thinking note, and that is, if you had the power to change three things in Australia's road safety space, what would they be and why?
So in terms of three things that I would like to change if I had power, one is increasing political accountability. I would love to have more accountable politicians that take this cause more seriously. And we have identified several ways that we can make our politicians more accountable. One of them is developing safety performance indicators. If I draw a parallel, it's like there are some indicators for human health, like, how much we eat, how much we exercise, and all of that. And we can use them to sort of, predict a person's health and longevity. We have very similar indicators for road safety, and we can monitor them on a yearly basis, on a 6 monthly basis. And if we have them, we can keep the political feet in the fire and ask them the tough question and ask them to do something about it. So that's one area. We know that this is evidence. We don't have a stronger evidence than the evidence behind the speed and speed management. Speed is the most important factor in causing crashes and causing severe outcomes. So if I could change one thing, and Emily, this is not just one place in Europe. All over Europe, Canada, America, we see 30 km/h zones. We want more of them in Australia. I feel so backward when I travel in Europe and see. And finally, it's about including safety, not as an add-on to the road transport cycle that we discussed, from strategizing investment, programming, delivery, and maintenance and evaluation. So safety should become not the 11th hour afterthought. We have evidence, Emily, that by increasing the cost initially by 5%, we can increase the safety of a project to almost 95% perfect. So don't wait till the 11th hour because you cannot do anything. That's embedded from the early on. These are three things that I would really like.
And Hafez, thanks for coming onto the podcast and chatting with me today.
Thank you, Emily, for having me. And I would really like to encourage everyone to think about what we discussed today and be safe on the road and the street. Thank you.
To learn more about any of the guests that we have on the Bite Size podcast, you can check out our show notes at compassiot.substack.com. Alternatively, if you'd like to know more about the company that runs this podcast, Compass IoT, you can visit our website, which is compassiot.com.au. Until next time.